The silence that greeted David was not the comforting, luxurious quiet of a house well managed, but a dense, suffocating blanket. After 5 grueling months closing a colossal deal in Tokyo, he had expected warmth, perhaps even a banner, but certainly the cheerful, if slightly dramatic, chaos that defined his family. Instead, the foyer of the sprawling estate was an abyss of muted tension. "Hello." David's voice, usually a commanding baritone, sounded hollow against the Italian marble. A slight, almost imperceptible movement drew his attention. Lara, the family's live-in housekeeper, was standing by the entrance to the living room, a dust cloth clutched in her hand. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her eyes, usually quick and efficient, were lowered. "Mr. David," she murmured, her accent a soft, lyrical whisper that always reminded him of the countryside. "Welcome back. Mrs. Rebecca is upstairs." "Thank you, Lara." "Everything all right?" he asked, already sensing the air was too still. Lara hesitated, just for a moment too long. "Everything is as it should be, sir." She avoided his gaze, then quickly excused herself, melting away toward the kitchen. David shrugged off the unsettling feeling, attributing it to jet lag and the anticlimax of his return. He headed toward the grand staircase, his gaze catching his own reflection in the hallway mirror, a 40-something man in a bespoke suit, a picture of success, returning to his perfect life. Upstairs, Rebecca, his wife, gave him the practiced welcome of a socialite greeting a business partner, a quick hug, a peck on the cheek, and a detailed complaint about a recent charity gala. "Darling, I missed you," she said, though her eyes were already flicking back to a magazine. "The house has been dreadfully quiet. Honestly, these 5 months have been a bore." "And Alex?" David asked, cutting to the chase. Their son, Alex, had just turned 17, a milestone David had missed. Rebecca waved a dismissive hand. "Alex is fine. Just, being 17. Moody, glued to his room. You know how it is. Teenagers are all the same, David." David didn't know how it was. Alex had always been an engaging, albeit sensitive, kid. Later that evening, after dinner, where Alex made a brief, awkward appearance, refusing eye contact and barely touching his food, David decided to check on his son. He found Alex's room, a monument to expensive teenage isolation, dark. That he knocked gently. "Alex? It's Dad. Can I come in?" A muffled, non-committal grunt was the only response. David pushed the door open. The room was illuminated only by the faint glow of a gaming console, but the console was off. Alex was sitting on the window seat, looking out into the meticulously manicured gardens, his shoulders slumped. "Hey, slugger," David said, trying for a light tone. "Welcome home hug." Alex didn't move. He didn't even turn his head. "I'm fine, Dad. Tired. Good night." His voice was flat, devoid of its usual sarcastic wit or youthful energy. A sharp, unpleasant feeling settled in David's stomach. This wasn't just teenage moodiness. This was the quiet emptiness of a boy who felt like he was disappearing. Over the next few days, the pattern repeated. Rebecca was oblivious, immersed in her world of luncheons and appointments. Alex was a shadow, a ghost wandering his own home. He avoided David, sidestepping every attempt at conversation. Yet, David noticed one anomaly. One afternoon, he walked past the service staircase and heard voices. He paused, recognizing Lara's soft tones and Alex's low murmur. He watched, hidden by the doorway, as Alex emerged from the kitchen, not going to his room, but sitting down at the small wooden table Lara used for quick breaks. Lara was preparing a simple herbal tea. She didn't talk about school, money, or his future. She simply placed the mug in front of him, sat down opposite, and looked at him. Not with judgment, not with impatience, but with an immense, quiet understanding. "He said I was exaggerating," Alex whispered, staring into the steam of his tea. "He said I need to man up." Lara reached across the table and placed her hand over his, a gesture so gentle and yet so profoundly intimate that David felt a physical jolt. "He does not understand, mi corazón," Lara said softly. "He sees the problem as a thing to fix, not a feeling to hold. But it is not a thing. It is heavy. And you are allowed to be tired of carrying it. Just let me help you hold it for a while. Alex finally broke. His shoulders shook, and a single, silent tear tracked down his cheek. He didn't cry out, he just crumbled inward. David stood frozen in the hallway, the blood draining from his face. He was the Alex was talking about. Alex had been trying to talk to someone, and that someone wasn't his father or his mother. It was the housekeeper. The profound intimacy of the moment, the sheer depth of Alex's pain and Lara's tender response, hit David like a physical blow. His son was not just moody, he was broken. And the only person who saw it, the only person he trusted, was the one person hired to clean their floors. David felt an uncontrollable surge of jealousy, confusion, and terrifying realization. Something immense and vital had been happening in his home while he was gone, and he was completely outside of it. That he needed to know what Alex had said, and more importantly, who Alex had been talking to before he came home. David retreated silently, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The perfect facade of his family life had just cracked, and the fissure led straight to the small, comforting hand of his housekeeper. David spent the rest of the day in a state of carefully masked agitation. The image of Lara's hand over Alex's, the raw sorrow in his son's voice, and the cryptic words, "He said I was exaggerating," replayed in his mind. He was David Sterling, a man who controlled global markets, yet he felt utterly helpless and blind in his own domain. That he needed to talk to Lara, but he couldn't do it under Rebecca's scrutinizing eye. The opportunity came the following morning. David found Lara methodically polishing the silver display in the formal dining room. "Lara, may I have a moment?" David asked, his voice low, lacking its usual CEO confidence. Lara instantly straightened, her composure returning instantly, though a slight tension lingered in her shoulders. "Of course, Mr. David. Is something wrong with the breakfast service?" "No, everything is fine," David assured her. He leaned against the mahogany table, forcing himself to adopt a casual posture that didn't match the tremor in his hands. "I need to ask you about Alex." Lara's gaze, which had been fixed on the silver, finally lifted to meet his. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of professionalism and deep, private concern. "I heard you two talking yesterday," David admitted, watching her reaction closely. "In the kitchen." Alex seemed distressed. More than just a typical teenager. Lara carefully placed the polishing cloth down. She took a slow, deliberate breath. "Alex has been struggling, sir. For a long time." "Struggling with what?" David pressed. "School. Friends. What is going on?" Lara looked directly at him, and David was struck by the honesty and pain in her eyes. "It is not a single thing, Mr. David. It is an accumulation. He feels invisible. He is under immense pressure to achieve, to be the perfect heir, but he feels no connection to the life being prepared for him. When he tries to express this, he is dismissed. He has been having severe anxiety attacks and periods of deep sadness for months now." "Months?" David repeated, the word lodging in his throat. 5 months he had been gone. Alex had been suffering this entire time. Why didn't I know this? Why didn't Rebecca tell me? Lara hesitated, glancing momentarily toward the main hall, then leaning in slightly. "That is difficult for me to answer, sir." "Lara, please. I need the truth. Did you say something to his mother?" David's voice was barely a whisper now, loaded with dread. That a flicker of defiance, or perhaps painful recollection, crossed Lara's face. "Yes, Mr. David," she confirmed, her voice steady. "I did. The first time I became seriously concerned was shortly after you left, about 4 months ago. Alex had a frightening episode late one night. I found him struggling to breathe in the hallway. When he recovered, I immediately went to Mrs. Rebecca." David's breath hitched. "And what did she say?" Lara repeated the exchange with the quiet authority of someone recalling an injustice. "I told her that Alex needed professional help, perhaps a doctor or a therapist. I explained his withdrawn behavior, the lack of sleep, and the fear in his eyes. Mrs. Rebecca told me I was overreacting to domestic drama. She said Alex was a drama queen, just looking for attention. She told me, and I quote, "Don't make a fuss, Lara. Just keep the house running smoothly and stay in your lane." The simple, damning words, "stay in your lane," echoed in the silent room. David pushed himself away from the table, taking a few steps toward the window, trying to reconcile the image of his impeccably organized, socially charming wife with this cruel dismissal of their son's agony. He thought of the words Alex had whispered. He said I was exaggerating. Alex hadn't been talking about a therapist or a friend, he was talking about his mother, who had become the he in his desperate narrative. "And you told her again?" David asked, his voice rough. "Twice more, sir," Lara confirmed sadly. "The last time was 2 weeks ago. I said he was getting worse. That he was isolating himself completely. She simply gave me a bonus and told me to focus on my duties. She was afraid of scandal, that admitting Alex was struggling would hurt her standing in the social circle." The magnitude of Rebecca's betrayal hit David with dizzying force. She hadn't just ignored the problem, she had actively concealed it, silencing the only person who had tried to help, all to maintain appearances. That he looked back at Lara, suddenly seeing her not as a housekeeper, but as the sole guardian of his son's mental well-being. "Lara," David said, his voice laced with emotion. "Thank you. For seeing him. For not staying in your lane." "He is a good boy, Mr. David," Lara replied, her eyes softening. "He just needed someone to listen without expectation." David clenched his jaw. He had been away making millions, believing his family was secure, only to find the foundation rotten, held together only by the quiet vigilance of an employee. He had to confront Rebecca. The truth, finally brought into the light, promised to tear the elegant veneer off their life and unleash the chaos Lara had only managed to postpone. The atmosphere at the Sterling dinner table that evening was suffocatingly formal. Rebecca, dressed impeccably for a charity board meeting she was attending later, spoke effortlessly about property values and the appalling choice of flowers at a rival's luncheon. Alex sat opposite David, picking at his C base, his gaze fixed somewhere between the crystal water glass and the immaculate white tablecloth. Lara, as always, moved silently through the dining room, ensuring perfection. David waited until Lara had served the dessert, a delicate berry tart, and retired to the kitchen. He couldn't risk her presence during the explosion he knew was coming. "Rebecca," David began, his voice dangerously calm, cutting through her monologue about vintage wine. She smiled faintly. "Yes, darling. Did you enjoy the tart? It's new. Alex is unwell." The smile froze on her lips. "Oh, honestly, David. Must we discuss teenage angst over dessert? He's moody, I told you. He'll snap out of it." David leaned forward, placing his fork down with a quiet clink that echoed in the silence. His eyes, usually warm and reassuring, were cold steel. "He is having severe anxiety, Rebecca. He is showing signs of deep psychological distress. He feels invisible and crushed by expectations." Rebecca's composure began to fray. She shot a quick, furious look at Alex, who instantly recoiled, sinking further into his chair. "Where did you get this ridiculous assessment?" she hissed, keeping her voice low but sharp. "Are you now a psychoanalyst, David? You've been home for 5 minutes. I got it from the person who has been living here, day in and day out, the one who actually saw him," David stated, his gaze boring into her. "Lara." The name hung in the air like a poisoned dart. Rebecca's face turned scarlet, a mixture of shame and white-hot fury. That maid," she spat, her voice vibrating with malice. "She dared to meddle. She dared to overstep her boundaries. I told her to focus on cleaning, not on family business. She overstepped because you failed, Rebecca." David thundered, the volume causing Alex to jump. He hadn't raised his voice in years. "She noticed his suffering 4 months ago. She came to you. She reported a medical emergency, and you told her to stay in her lane." Alex, who had been silently observing the escalating tension, suddenly looked up at his father, his eyes wide with surprise and a fragile glimmer of hope. He realized his father knew the truth, and more importantly, that he was fighting for him. Rebecca slammed her hand down on the table, rattling the crystal. Of course, I dismissed her. What was I supposed to do? Call a shrink every time he looked glum? This is our son, David. And this is our life. I will not have some common housemaid creating drama and spreading rumors that Alex is broken. He is broken, Rebecca. And you knew it, and you actively hid it to protect your pathetic social standing. David's voice was laced with pure, agonizing disappointment. When I was gone, she was the only one who cared enough to see him. She wasn't paid to care, she just did. She became the mother he needed when his actual mother was too busy polishing her reputation. The word mother hit Rebecca with a shocking finality. She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward. You are choosing her word over mine. Over your wife's. Over your family's dignity, she cried, her voice rising to a shriek. You believe the fabricated hysterics of a hired girl who is clearly trying to manipulate her position. She has no right. Absolutely no right to insert herself into Alex's life like this. She didn't insert herself, Rebecca. You pushed her in. By running away from your responsibility. David countered, standing up as well that he turned to Alex, his voice instantly softening with paternal devotion. Alex, look at me. I am so sorry. I should have been here. But we are fixing this. First thing tomorrow, we are finding you the best help available. Alex met his father's gaze, a small, involuntary nod escaping him. The simple validation of his pain was more potent than any medicine. The sound of Rebecca's sudden, cold laugh brought David's attention back to her. Fixing this, she sneered. You think you can fix years of pressure and neglect in a day, David? While you were building your empire, I was left dealing with this, sensitive disappointment. And now you're going to reward the servant for pointing out my failure? David walked around the table until he was standing right in front of her. His expression was one of profound finality. Yes, Rebecca. I am. Because she acted with more dignity, compassion, and courage than you have shown in the past 5 months combined. She saved Alex from collapsing completely. He dropped the final bomb quietly. As for us, I think we have a lot to discuss regarding the future of our marriage. Because a wife who puts her social life before her child's mental health is no partner of mine. Rebecca gasped, clutching her chest. You can't be serious. Over that little nobody? It has nothing to do with Lara, David said, his voice flat. It has everything to do with you. And the moment you told the only person trying to save our son to stay in her lane, you stepped out of mine. The dinner ended not with dessert, but with the chilling echo of Rebecca's defeated sob as she realized the perfect world she had so meticulously curated had just shattered. In the corner, Alex finally felt a flicker of peace, a tiny spark of light that had been missing for so long that he looked past his parents, towards the door leading to the kitchen, a silent acknowledgement and gratitude passing between him and the unknown kindness of the woman who had truly saved him. The days following the dinner confrontation were heavy and strange. Rebecca retreated entirely, locking herself in her study, emerging only to take furious, hushed phone calls, presumably to her lawyer or her most discreet friends. The palpable air of chaos she had feared was now a stark reality, and it was entirely of David's making, or, rather, her own. David, meanwhile, focused solely on Alex. He cancelled his immediate business travel and spent his days arranging appointments with the best child psychologist in the state. He approached his son not as a CEO solving a problem, but as a deeply remorseful father trying to bridge a vast, cold gap. We have an appointment tomorrow, Alex. Dr. Elias. He comes highly recommended, David said one afternoon, finding Alex sketching quietly in the sunroom. Alex looked up. His eyes still held that haunted quality, but the tension around his mouth had eased slightly. Okay, Dad. Thanks. No, thank you, son, David replied, sitting opposite him. Thank you for still being here. And thank you for having the courage to trust someone. The unspoken name, Lara, hung between them. The new dynamic in the house placed Lara in an impossible position. She had gone from being a respected, quiet employee to the unexpected catalyst for the Sterling's marital implosion. David was excessively, almost awkwardly, grateful. He had privately doubled her salary and offered her a substantial bonus, which she accepted with professional grace but evident discomfort. Rebecca treated her as if she were a carrier of the plague, avoiding eye contact, communicating only through frosty, written notes, and sometimes, sending palpable waves of hatred across a room. Lara was trying desperately to return to the invisible efficiency of her old role, but Alex wouldn't let her. One evening, David was reviewing documents in his home office when he heard footsteps near the back staircase. He followed the sound, finding Alex waiting patiently by the kitchen entrance. Lara was just finishing up, wiping down the stainless steel counters. "Lara," Alex started, his voice a little shy. I wanted to say thank you. For telling him." Lara paused her work, turning to face him. "Alex, mi niño, you don't need to thank me. I just did what anyone who cared would do." "No," Alex insisted. "Mom just told me I was exaggerating. Everyone tells me to stop being so sensitive. You're the only person who just let me be sad." He hesitated, then slowly extended a small, folded piece of paper. "It's not much, but I drew it for you. It's a place you described once, from your village." Lara unfolded the paper. It was a simple, yet beautiful pencil drawing of a small stone cottage surrounded by wild lavender. Exactly as she had described her grandmother's house during one of their quiet talks. A genuine, unguarded smile lit up her face. "Alex, this is beautiful," she whispered, her eyes shining. "It is exactly right. Thank you." As Alex walked away, a visible lightness in his step, David finally stepped out of the shadows. "Lara," he said softly. Lara turned, immediately adopting her professional shield. "Mr. David. He is connecting with you on a level he never connected with us," David observed, a complex mix of admiration and melancholy in his tone. "I see how much he needs you. He needs that uncomplicated safety." David walked closer, lowering his voice. "I need your help, Lara. Dr. Elias says the biggest obstacle is trust. Alex has to rebuild trust with his parents. But for now, he trusts you. Can you be his anchor, just for a little while longer? I will ensure you are compensated well, of course, and that Rebecca cannot harass you." Lara looked down at the drawing, then back at David. Her face was weary. "Mr. David, my job is to clean, cook, and manage this house. I was happy to listen to Alex as a friend, but I cannot be his therapist or his replacement mother. Mrs. Rebecca is making my presence here intolerable, and frankly, I feel I have done all I can without crossing a boundary I was hired not to cross." "You crossed the right boundary," David countered firmly. "You chose humanity over protocol. But I understand. If you leave, Alex loses the one genuine connection he has right now. I don't want to ask you to stay for me, but please, stay for him. Until he is stable, until he can find his feet with the doctor. You are the only stable thing left in this house." Lara sighed, running a hand over her temple. The idea of leaving the toxic atmosphere was tempting, but the thought of Alex losing his safe harbor was unbearable. She had grown fond of the troubled, sensitive boy. "Give me 2 weeks, Mr. David," she conceded quietly. "I will stay for 2 more weeks. But Mrs. Rebecca must cease the hostility. I am not a whipping post for her anger." "Agreed," David said instantly. "She will be informed immediately. And Lara, I am personally indebted to you." David knew he was asking her to endure a toxic environment for his son's sake. But he also knew that for Alex, Lara's quiet kindness was the only antidote to the decades of pressure and emotional neglect administered by the Sterling name. The house might be falling apart, but Alex was finally starting to breathe. The Sterling residence had become a stage for a silent, frozen war. David had honored his promise to Lara, laying down a non-negotiable decree to Rebecca: her hostility toward the housekeeper must cease immediately, or he would accelerate divorce proceedings and publicize the reason. For Rebecca, the threat of social disgrace outweighed her personal fury, and she responded by adopting a strategy of absolute non-recognition. She moved through the house as if Lara were an inconvenient, invisible piece of furniture, her silence more chilling than any shout. This hostile atmosphere only underscored Lara's critical role for Alex. The following day, David took Alex for his first session with Dr. Elias. David waited in the lobby, a nervous wreck. When Alex emerged an hour later, he looked drained, but not defeated. "How was it, son?" David asked gently. "We just talked." Alex shrugged, but then added, almost to himself, "He didn't tell me I was being a drama queen. He said it was good that I was feeling things." It was a small victory, but David clung to it. Later that evening, David found Lara preparing a light supper for Alex, a specific comfort dish of rice and beans she knew he liked. "Dr. Elias said Alex has a long road ahead," David confided, leaning against the counter. He called it situational depression and chronic anxiety, primarily caused by long-term emotional isolation and pressure to perform. He stressed that Alex needs stable, reliable emotional connections right now. Lara kept her eyes on the simmering pot. "He needs time, Mr. David. And honesty. The doctor is good, but the healing must happen here." "Exactly," David said, gesturing toward the back door. "That's why I need your help outside of the kitchen, too. Alex needs to feel normal." He retrieved a set of keys from his pocket. "We have a small lake house, very private, about 2 hours north. It's been locked up for years. No internet, terrible cell service, just trees and water. I want Alex to spend the weekend there. Alone, with someone he trusts. Someone he can just breathe with." He slid the keys across the granite counter toward Lara. "Rebecca would make the trip a nightmare. If I go, Alex will feel pressured to talk about the business, or the divorce. He needs a genuine break. He needs you, Lara." Lara stared at the keys as if they were a pair of handcuffs. "Mr. David, this is not my job. Taking your son away for a private weekend? It is crossing every line possible. Mrs. Rebecca would fire me and press charges for kidnapping." "Rebecca won't know until it's too late," David countered, his voice firm. "I'm not asking you to abandon your duties, I'm reassigning them. You will be compensated for your time and risk. I'm asking you to be his chaperone and his confidant. This isn't a maid, master, or mother dynamic. This is a desperate plea from a father to the only person his son relies on. Please, give him that space to heal." Lara looked at the keys, then at the half-open door to the foyer, sensing Rebecca's silent, omnipresent judgment. She thought of Alex's tired eyes, his quiet sketches, and the profound relief he felt when someone simply listened. 2 days, Lara agreed finally, her resolve buckling under the weight of Alex's need. "I will take him Saturday morning and bring him back Sunday night. And you must deal with the fallout when we return." "Absolutely. The moment you are gone, I will inform Rebecca that Alex needed a break, and that I authorized his time away with a trusted caregiver. She will rage at me, not you." David felt a wave of relief so intense it nearly buckled his knees. "Thank you, Lara. Pack comfortable clothes for both of you. And tell Alex to bring his sketchpad." That night, as David retired to his separate wing, he felt the loneliness of his massive house more acutely than ever. He was trying to fix his family with money and delegated care, while the real emotional repair was being done by a young woman he barely knew, driven only by compassion. He was the millionaire father, powerful and disconnected, and she was the anchor his family desperately needed. Meanwhile, Alex found Lara in the laundry room, folding towels. "Lara, Dad told me about the lake house," Alex said, excitement flickering in his voice for the first time in months. "Just us." "Just us, Alex," she confirmed, allowing herself a small, tired smile. "I promised your father I would make sure you eat properly and that you don't fall into the lake. Nothing more, nothing less." Alex walked over and, without thinking, hugged her quickly, a tight, genuine embrace. It means a lot. Thank you for staying. Lara, stiff with shock for a second, gently returned the hug. Always, Alex. Now, go pack your warmest hoodie. It will be cold by the water. The quiet departure on Saturday morning was executed with military precision. Before dawn, David watched from his study window as Lara, bundled in a borrowed jacket, helped Alex load a few bags into the back of a discreet SUV. They looked like two normal people escaping the city, not a millionaire's son and his housekeeper embarking on a clandestine psychological retreat. As the car pulled away, David felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. He had risked everything, his marriage, his family structure, and Lara's job security, on the faith that 2 days of quiet honesty with his housekeeper could achieve what a lifetime of privilege could not, save his son. The lake house was a rustic counterpoint to the sterling mansion, a sanctuary of rough-hewn timber and silence. With the city lights gone, the night sky was a dizzying canvas of stars. The lack of Wi-Fi and the near-zero cell signal felt less like an inconvenience and more like a necessary amputation from the life that was slowly killing Alex. Saturday was spent in comfortable, productive quiet. Lara focused on the simple mechanics of living, building a fire, preparing nourishing, unfussy meals, and ensuring the cabin was warm. Alex, initially hesitant, soon found relief in the routine. He wasn't being observed or managed, he was simply existing. In the afternoon, they sat on the small, rickety dock, fishing lines dangling lazily in the cold water. It's weird, Alex murmured, staring at the ripple caused by a dragonfly. This is the quietest I've felt in years. Usually, there's always a voice in my head telling me I should be studying, or practicing piano, or networking. Lara smiled faintly, pulling up her line to check the bait. That voice is not yours, Alex. It belongs to the expectation. They want me to take over the company, Alex confessed, the words tumbling out easily in the solitude. They've been grooming me since I was 10. Every internship, every summer course. But I hate it, Lara. I hate talking about acquisitions and markets. I want to study architecture. I want to build things that last, not deals that collapse. Then why don't you tell your father? She asked gently. Alex sighed heavily. He always looks so proud when I talk about the business. He says I'm a natural. I can't let him down. He's worked his whole life for this legacy. And what about your legacy, Alex? Lara challenged, meeting his eyes. Your life is not a vessel for your father's ambitions. It is yours. You have the right to be honest about what makes you happy. She paused, then lowered her voice. My mother always told me, if you build a life based on someone else's foundation, when they leave, your house falls down, too. Build your own stones, Alex. The advice was simple, practical, and profoundly wise. Alex absorbed it slowly, the idea of having an independent foundation clicking into place for the first time. Later that evening, after a dinner of chili and cornbread, they sat by the stone fireplace. Alex was sketching in his notebook, the flickering firelight casting deep shadows on his focused face. Lara was knitting a simple scarf. She saw the intense focus in his eyes and asked, "What are you drawing?" Alex hesitated, then showed her the page. It wasn't a cottage or a landscape. It was a chaotic, abstract swirl of jagged lines and heavy black scribbles, with a single, small figure huddled in the center. That's what it feels like inside my head, Alex admitted, his voice tight. Noise. Pressure. Like a storm that won't break. And that's me. Trapped. I see, Lara said, studying the drawing carefully. She didn't offer a platitude or a quick fix. Instead, she took a piece of charcoal and gently added something to the drawing, a thick, curved border, like a protective wall, around a chaotic swirl. What's that? Alex asked. It is your boundary, Lara explained softly. It is the strength you build around the noise. The noise will still be there, but it is not in you. You stand outside of it, strong and quiet. You decide when to open the door to the outside, and when to keep it closed. Alex stared at the drawing for a long time, the simple addition radically changing the feeling of the piece. The small, huddled figure suddenly looked less trapped and more contained, safe from the storm outside the circle. My therapist didn't give me homework, Alex said with a wry smile. But I think I just got some. The 2 days were a revelation for David, too, though he wasn't there. When he called Lara's designated burner phone on Sunday afternoon, he was surprised by the change in her voice. It was relaxed, warm, and entirely free of the professional distance she usually maintained. He is sleeping now, Mr. David, Lara reported. He ate well. We talked. He drew. We did not talk about home. We talked about his future. He is a wonderful boy, and he is finding his own strength. David hung up the phone, feeling a profound sense of peace, and a terrifying realization. Alex wasn't just bonding with Lara, he was healing because of her. She was providing the essential missing element in his life, unconditional presence and guidance devoid of corporate agenda. The problem, David knew, was that he couldn't keep his son's mental health dependent on a temporary agreement with his housekeeper. And he certainly couldn't face Rebecca after what he had done. As the SUV pulled back into the sprawling, manicured driveway late Sunday evening, David met them at the door. Alex, looking slightly wind-burned but genuinely rested, gave his father a spontaneous hug, a real hug, full of feeling, not duty. Thanks, Dad. That was necessary, Alex said. David looked over Alex's shoulder at Lara. Her eyes held the exhaustion of a weekend spent carrying a heavy emotional load, but also a quiet sense of accomplishment. Before David could speak, Rebecca's voice, sharp and high-pitched, cut through the quiet reunion. So, the runaway returns. And look who's with him. The meddling maid, triumphant. Rebecca stood at the top of the marble staircase, dressed in a crimson gown, looking less like a concerned mother and more like a furious Greek goddess ready to strike. The confrontation David had promised to handle had arrived, and it was going to be brutal. Rebecca descended the stairs with a theatrical slowness, her eyes fixed on Lara, who stood calmly beside Alex. Where have you been, Alex? Rebecca demanded, her voice dripping with artificial concern, quickly shifting to venom as she addressed David. And why did you let this woman abduct our son for the entire weekend without my knowledge? He was not abducted, Rebecca, David said, stepping forward to shield Lara. He was with a trusted adult, authorized by me, taking a much-needed break at the lake house. And I informed you immediately after they left. Informed me? You sent a cold text message an hour after they vanished. You treated me like a subordinate. And you sent him away with her. Rebecca gestured toward Lara with sheer disdain. The one who has been undermining my authority and filling his head with ridiculous notions of depression and architecture. She is a cleaning lady, David. Not a counselor. She is the only person in this house who has treated Alex like a human being in the last 5 months, David countered, his voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside him. And she is the only reason he is standing here, looking rested, instead of locked in his room, spiraling toward a breakdown. Alex, hearing his mother's vicious attack on Lara, suddenly stepped out from behind his father. He was no longer the silent, withdrawn boy. The weekend's quiet self-reflection had given him a fragile shield of courage. She didn't abduct me, Mom, Alex said, his voice surprisingly strong. I wanted to go. And she didn't fill my head with anything. She just listened. And she didn't judge me for wanting to be an architect instead of a CEO. Rebecca's eyes widened in horror. Architecture? What utter nonsense. Is this what she's been doing? Turning my son against his future? Against his family? No, Mom, Alex stated flatly. You did that yourself, months ago, when you told Lara I was a drama queen who needed to man up. I heard about that, too. You knew I was falling apart, and you told the only person who tried to help to ignore me. To stay in her lane. The force of Alex's accusation was devastating. Rebecca paled, the elegant mask of control finally shattering under the weight of her son's public condemnation. Alex, that is completely unfair. I was just trying to protect the family's image, your father's legacy. Teenagers are dramatic, I was trying to toughen you up, she pleaded, her voice cracking. No, you were trying to protect your own image, David interjected, stepping close to Rebecca. You sacrificed our son's mental health for fear of social gossip. Lara saw a distressed child and acted with compassion. You saw a potential scandal and acted with cruelty. He turned to Lara, his expression softening to one of profound respect. Lara, thank you. You were a true friend to my son. Your 2 weeks are up, and I will keep my promise. You are free to go, with my deepest gratitude and the severance we discussed. Lara inclined her head with quiet dignity. Thank you, Mr. David. Alex, I wish you peace and strength. She started to walk toward the service entrance, ready to collect her few belongings, but Rebecca wasn't finished. Seeing the housekeeper about to walk away, victorious and vindicated, ignited one final, vicious outburst, no. She doesn't get to just walk away with a bonus. She has destroyed my marriage and poisoned my son against me. She needs to be punished. Rebecca lunged forward, grabbing the heavy, ornate vase from the nearby pedestal. Before David could react, Rebecca hurled the vase toward Lara. It missed Lara's head by inches, shattering against the marble wall with a deafening crash, sending shards flying across the hallway. Alex screamed. Lara froze, her hand flying to her mouth, shock etched on her face. David acted instantly. He grabbed Rebecca's arm, his grip like steel, pulling her back from the scene of the domestic violence. That's it, Rebecca, David said, his voice lethal and final. You are not a fit guardian for this boy. You are unstable. Get out of my house. Now. The lawyers will handle the rest. I want you gone tonight. Rebecca dissolved into hysterical, defeated sobs, the realization of her complete isolation finally hitting her. Lara, trembling slightly, took a single, controlled breath and quietly walked away to gather her things. She knew her time here was over. The violence was the definitive end of her professional role. As the police were called, not to arrest Rebecca, but to ensure her peaceful departure and protect Lara, David found his son shaking, staring at the debris on the floor. Alex, are you all right? David asked, pulling him into a tight embrace. She was aiming for Lara, Alex whispered, burying his face in his father's shoulder. I hate this, Dad. I hate all of this. David held him tight. I know, son. But it is over. The storm is finally breaking. And the woman who helped you through it, we are going to make sure she is safe and taken care of. David knew that his marriage was over. His perfect, curated life lay shattered on the marble floor along with the vase. But for the first time in years, he felt a clear path forward, a sense of rightness centered entirely around the survival of his son and the deep respect he now held for the housekeeper who had become his family's unlikely savior. In the immediate aftermath of Rebecca's departure, the Sterling mansion felt eerily calm, the oppressive silence replaced by a fragile sense of relief. David ensured Lara was escorted safely off the property that night, away from the legal chaos, with a substantial wire transfer to start her new life. The next morning, Alex woke up in a house that felt truly like home for the first time in memory. He found David in the kitchen, making surprisingly decent scrambled eggs, a task usually reserved for the staff. We need to talk about some changes, Alex, David said, pushing a plate toward his son. The divorce? Alex asked, subdued. That's the legal side. The personal side is about you, David confirmed. First, I read every single one of your architecture school applications. They are fantastic. We are canceling your enrollment in the business program. You will be applying to your top choice architecture schools, and I will support you fully, financially, and with my time. Alex looked up, a slow, genuine smile spreading across his face. Really, Dad? You're not mad about the company? I was mad at myself for being so blind, David admitted, leaning across the counter. The company is my legacy, but you are my life. We will find a capable CEO to run Sterling Corporation. Your job is to be happy and healthy. The air between them cleared, years of unspoken pressure dissolving with a single conversation. David then turned to the other pressing matter. We also need to discuss Lara. Is she okay? Alex asked immediately, his relief clouded by concern. "Where is she?" "She is fine. She's safe. And she is now financially secure, thanks to the arrangement we made," David explained. "But she did her job, Alex, the hardest, most important job. She saved you. She can't come back here, not while the divorce is pending and definitely not in her old role." Alex nodded sadly. "I know. But I miss talking to her. She just understood." "I know. And I've thought about that," David said, pushing a printed address across the counter. "Lara is exceptionally capable. She is intelligent, organized, and possesses emotional integrity I haven't seen in my entire professional career. She told me she wanted to go back to school eventually," Alex murmured. "To study business management." David's eyes lit up. "Exactly. She wanted to manage. Alex, the truth is, I need someone like Lara in my professional life, someone honest, organized, who keeps me focused on what matters, not just the bottom line. I have made a job offer." Alex picked up the paper. It was an address for a small, boutique office building in the city center. "She accepted a position as my executive assistant," David announced. "She will be running my private office, managing my schedule, and handling my personal affairs, including ensuring you are on track with Dr. Elias and your applications. She starts next week." Alex stared at the address, then back at his father. A slow grin stretched across his face. "So, she's still going to be working for us, but this time, in a professional role that she deserves?" "Precisely. She earned it, Alex. And this way, she stays connected to you as a trusted mentor, and I get the most valuable asset I've acquired in years. It keeps her out of Rebecca's reach, and it puts her in a position to build her own career." Alex jumped up and hugged his father again, a spontaneous, joyful embrace. "That's perfect, Dad. Absolutely perfect." The transition was swift and successful. Rebecca filed for an aggressive divorce, but David was prepared, protected by the evidence of her emotional neglect and the incident of domestic violence. Lara started her new job, arriving not in a maid's uniform, but in sharp, professional attire. She was fiercely effective, streamlining David's chaotic affairs and proving to be an indispensable asset. She maintained a professional distance with David, but her relationship with Alex was warmer, transitioning into a mentorship where she helped him structure his studies and maintain his mental health routine. David watched them interact, the quiet confidence in Alex's eyes, the respectful, easy manner in which he spoke to Lara, and the genuine, proud warmth in Lara's responses. One afternoon, David stood by his office window, watching the sunset over the city, Lara's efficient notes on the quarterly projections lying neatly on his desk. He had lost a wife, but he had gained a son back, and secured the partnership of a remarkable woman. He realized the true, astonishing irony of the situation. He had been a millionaire, believing he had everything, only to find the most valuable treasures, his son's trust, and a true measure of integrity, came from the person he paid the least, the person he had dismissed as just the maid. David finally reached for his phone, sending a text to Alex, "Dinner at home tonight. Just the two of us. And tomorrow, we go look at architecture schools." He had stopped focusing on the past and the shattered remnants of his old life. David Sterling, the millionaire father, was finally home, ready to build a new, honest foundation for his family. Stone by stone. 6 months passed, bringing with them the bitter cold of winter and the long, slow warmth of genuine healing. The divorce proceedings with Rebecca were messy, but manageable, fueled by her desperate need to salvage a semblance of public dignity. David's focus, however, remained unwavering. His son and his business. Alex flourished under the new environment. The pressure to conform had lifted, and in its place, he found the freedom to explore his passion. Dr. Elias reported significant progress. The anxiety attacks had diminished, replaced by productive discussions about his future. With Lara's calm organizational help, Alex successfully navigated college applications, ultimately receiving an acceptance letter from his dream architecture program on the West Coast. Lara, in her new role as executive assistant, had quickly proven David's faith was well placed. She ran his life with meticulous, quiet efficiency. She wasn't just managing appointments, she was anticipating needs, filtering out time-wasting distractions, and, subtly, humanizing his work life. Their dynamic had evolved into a deep professional respect, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of something more. David often caught himself watching her across the spacious office, admiring her sharp intelligence and the innate grace with which she handled the most demanding clients. He was a wealthy, powerful man, and she was an indispensable professional, yet the unspoken history, the knowledge that she had saved his son, created an intimacy that transcended their job titles. One late Friday evening, after the staff had gone home, David found Lara still at her desk, working on the detailed financial projections for Alex's tuition and living expenses. "Lara, you should go home." "It can wait until Monday," David said, leaning against the doorframe. Lara looked up, pushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "It is better to finish now, Mr. David. Alex leaves in August. Everything needs to be perfectly structured for him to focus entirely on his studies." "You care a great deal about him, don't you?" David asked, walking over to her desk. "He is a good young man, sir. He just needed permission to be himself," she replied simply, gathering her files. "And now he has it." "And what about you, Lara?" David asked, his voice softening. "You've put all your focus into my life and Alex's. What about your future? Your dreams?" Lara looked out the panoramic office window at the city lights. "I am studying for my MBA entrance exams. This job has given me the confidence and the financial stability to pursue that goal. I will not be your assistant forever, Mr. David. But I will be very grateful for this foundation." "I know," David smiled, genuinely proud of her ambition. "And I look forward to signing your first investment check when you launch your own company." He hesitated, then took a breath. "Lara, the divorce is almost finalized. Rebecca will be out of the picture entirely soon. The only relationship I have left is the one with my son, and this one. Our professional one." Lara looked up, her expression guarded. She knew where this conversation was leading. The unspoken tension, the shared crisis, the profound gratitude, it all pointed toward a line that neither of them had dared to cross. "Mr. David," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I started here as your housekeeper. I am now your executive assistant. I respect your position, and I am careful with mine. Any blurring of those lines, particularly now, would destroy everything we have built for Alex and everything I am building for myself. I will not be seen as the woman who replaced the wife, especially not after all the work we did to establish my professional credibility." David nodded slowly. He respected her boundary immensely. She wasn't playing games, she was protecting her hard-won independence. "Understood," he said, his disappointment brief but noticeable. "No professional lines will be blurred. I am grateful for your honesty, as always." Lara rose from her chair, gathering her purse. "Good night, Mr. David." "Good night, Lara." As she walked toward the elevator, David felt a pang of profound, yet strangely peaceful, loneliness. He had finally achieved everything: a successful business, a happy, healthy son, and an impeccably run life. Yet, the woman he respected most in the world, the one whose integrity had saved his family, was deliberately keeping him at arm's length. But David Sterling was a patient man, especially when the reward was worth the wait. He knew that the foundation of mutual respect and admiration was stronger than any fleeting romance. He would wait until Lara had achieved her own dreams, until the specter of the maid was completely erased by the reality of the successful professional. He looked at the empty desk, then at the city lights. He had traded a wife for a son's well-being and a professional partner. And for now, that was enough. The humid heat of August settled over the city, signaling Alex's imminent departure. The Sterling mansion, now fully renovated to reflect a simpler, less ostentatious style, finally felt like a home stripped bare of artifice. The final weeks before Alex left for college were spent in a whirlwind of emotional preparation. David, now a single father committed to presence, helped Alex pack, ensuring every necessary item was accounted for, down to the new drafting table Alex insisted on taking. On the last night before the flight, David, Alex, and Lara shared a quiet dinner, a deliberate, simple meal prepared by a new, professional chef. Rebecca was now a footnote, the divorce settled, and her control over their lives vanished. I won't miss the endless pressuring, but I will miss having someone who makes sense of Dad's schedule, Alex joked, glancing at Lara. Lara smiled, genuine warmth in her eyes. Your father is learning to manage his own expectations, Alex. And I am only a phone call away. Focus on building that foundation we talked about. I will, Alex promised. He paused, then looked straight at Lara. And thank you, Lara. For everything. Seriously. You saved me. It was the full, complete acknowledgement Lara needed. The next morning, at the airport, the goodbye was heartfelt. Alex hugged his father tightly, a mature understanding passing between them. He then turned to Lara, giving her a deep, meaningful hug. Call me when you land, Lara instructed softly, pulling away. Will do, Alex promised, and then, with a lightness David hadn't seen since he was a small child, Alex walked toward his gate, ready to architect his own life. Driving back from the airport, the silence in the car was profound. David drove slowly, enjoying the weightlessness of the moment. He had fulfilled his promise. His son was safe, healthy, and on his way to his dream. He is going to be magnificent, David said finally, his voice thick with pride. He is already magnificent, Mr. David, Lara corrected gently from the passenger seat. He just needed someone to clear the rubble so he could see it. David pulled the car over to a secluded spot overlooking a quiet park, turning off the engine. He turned to face Lara. You have fulfilled every single obligation and exceeded every expectation, Lara. Alex is stable. He is gone. The divorce is final. My office runs like a clockwork miracle. You are ready for your MBA program, and you have enough capital to see yourself through. Lara's expression was unreadable. She knew what was coming. She had spent a year building an impenetrable wall between her past role and her future ambition. I will give my official notice on Monday, Mr. David, she stated calmly. I will train your new assistant over the next month, and then I will focus on my studies. David reached out, covering her hands, which were resting neatly in her lap. His touch was respectful, tender, and absolute. Lara, he said, his eyes filled with a sincerity that was far more powerful than his usual business intensity. I am not speaking to my executive assistant, and I am not speaking about my son's future. I am speaking about mine. You are the most powerful man I know, David. You saved my family from the brink, not with money, but with integrity and immense, quiet courage. You made a boundary to protect your professional life, and I respect it. But I also know that if I don't say this now, I will regret it for the rest of my life. He looked into her eyes, which were finally, undeniably, softening. My life was built on a foundation of money and appearance. It was beautiful, but it was hollow. You exposed the rot, and then you taught me how to rebuild it, brick by brick, based on honesty and compassion. You didn't just save Alex, you saved me. You are my compass, Lara. He tightened his grip on her hands. I don't want you to stay as my employee. I don't want you to sacrifice your education. I want you to go to business school, achieve every single goal you set for yourself, and then I want to be the man waiting for you when you finish. I want a partnership, Lara. Not a business one. A real one. A life built together, on the principles you taught me. A single tear tracked down Lara's cheek, not of sadness, but of overwhelming release. She saw the truth in his eyes. The millionaire father was finally, completely, honest. I cannot be the housekeeper who married the boss, David, she whispered. You are not, David stated firmly. You are the successful MBA candidate who will marry the father of the boy you saved. You are my equal, Lara. And my future. Lara took a shaky breath, the weight of the last year, the fear, the courage, the quiet love for a troubled boy, lifting from her shoulders. She had won her independence, and now, she had won something more profound than I suppose, Lara said, a tentative, hopeful smile breaking through the tears. "I will need to study very hard and finish my degree quickly, Mr. Sterling." "Take all the time you need, Ms. Lara," David replied, matching her smile. "I am a patient man. I've finally learned to wait for what truly matters." He leaned in, and the kiss was not a sudden, passionate eruption, but a quiet, tender promise, the first stone laid for the new, genuine foundation of David Sterling's life. He had lost a fortune in the divorce, but he had gained the only treasures that mattered, the love of his son, and the honest heart of the woman who had truly come home.